Welcome to Learn at Work podcast, which is sponsored by iOS Press, the publisher of Work, a journal of prevention, assessment, and rehabilitation. We're delighted to host this podcast that will bring together insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions on topics that matter most in the realm of health, rehabilitation, work, prevention, and assessment. What can you expect from our podcast? We'll have expert interviews, individuals who have published in the journal, and we'll dive into conversations with leaders who have shared their valuable experience and expertise. You'll learn about different latest work trends, technology, and best practices. I'm Karen Jacobs, the founding editor of Work, and I'm the moderator of these podcasts. I'm delighted to have as our guest on this Learn at Work podcast, Lynn Shaw, Dr. Lynn Shaw. And Lynn and I have known each other a very long time, and she's been part of our journal Work since the very beginnings of the journal. And the journal is going to be 34 years old. And so, Lynn, you've been part of this growth in the journal. So let's start off with where are you located, and tell us about what you're doing, and then we'll move on to talking about the journal and its impact in the work that you're doing. So welcome, Lynn.
Thank you very much, Karen. It's my pleasure to be part of this podcast. I am a white woman. I'm cisgendered. I go by pronouns she and her, and I'm located in London, Ontario, Canada. And I'm currently working at the University of Western Ontario as the director of the School of Occupational Therapy in the Faculty of Health Sciences.
So, Lynn, thank you for introducing yourself. And as well, you're an occupational therapist.
Yes, I'm an occupational therapist, and I also call myself an occupational scientist.
Great. And do you want to maybe share for our listeners what an occupational scientist is?
I will. An occupational scientist is someone who studies everything about doing, the inequities of doing, the possibilities for participation in society that come with taking a lens of looking at equity, and that all people have the right to participate in the areas in which matter to them. But in particular, I'm really concerned about people's participation in decent work. And I think that's really an important aspect of the work that I do.
Well, thank you, Lynn. And you used another term that people may not be familiar with, which is decent work. Mm-hmm. And could you elaborate on that for our listeners?
I would. The International Labour Organization really started talking about decent work as early as 2005. And their goals and dreams and aspirations for the world were that everyone has the right to work, and everyone has the right to make a living, and everyone has a right to equitable pay and to contribute to society, and right to a safe place to work, a place where people belong, and that people have equitable access to apply for, be recruited for, and participate in work. So they really started it. And then I believe that the UN Sustainable Goals on decent work have really pushed the agenda forward, because it does take a world to achieve that goal of people being able to participate in work and then being able to participate in decent work. So it has both health and safety on one side, and on the other, it's about contributing to your community, being part and belonging of that community, and then actually having the right to be considered able to access work in whatever environment you're in.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And, this is such an important concept, and it ties in beautifully as your role as an occupational scientist, as well as an occupational therapist, as well as a human being
Yes.
in general.
Yes, that's correct.
So, Lynn, you have been part of the journal, helping and working with your students as well on different topics. I remember years ago, you were looking at some of the themes that were published in work. Um, you have columns that have been part of the work journal. So maybe you can share some of the things that you've done and the impact that it's had on your career and perhaps the careers of other people that you've worked with too.
I'd be delighted to talk about this issue. I think the relationship with the journal work has been a real core piece of my life journey, and it remains so. I believe that the openness that you have had as the editor in chief to expand and grow knowledge that pertains to all aspects of work was certainly a draw to this particular journal. Say novice researchers and being able to work alongside other researchers to be able to publish their work in this journal and get mentored. I think part of that it was evident right from the get-go. A couple of things I do really think were really essential for me is that there was an open space through the opinion column where you could position key evidence or information or concepts or policies and publish that in the journal. So this really sets the tone for an open journal. Then the other part of this is that there isn't a space for students. And when an opportunity came for students to go on an international experience to understand work transitions in 2010 in Chile, you created a space for those students to have a section in a journal where they reviewed papers, they edited the papers, they edited a column, and I think that whole part of the journal's openness for different things, really supported those students along their journeys. And even I could track some of those students and identify about 3 or 4 of them that were occupational therapists at the time. They got a paper published based on work that they did, and then now some of them are off into higher level journeys into the PhD programs that they've taken. So it starts with having the opportunity to be mentored by somebody, to publish something, and then people don't know that what their capacities are until they have the experience. And so I think that was truly an incredible experience for occupational therapists. The other additional one that I think is really essential and really critical is that this journal was open to the underlying theoretical perspectives of an occupational science lens, which looks at the humanness and the humaneness of occupations, and in particular, its relationship to work. And in 2008, there was a grant that I was able to write for a workshop to host an international workshop. It brought people from all over the world together. From there, the journal even supported us in being able to have peer-reviewed papers as a result of that workshop. And then also the initiative that took place from that particular experience from the Social Science and Humanities Research Council funded workshop here was to actually open the door to critically looking at what do we know about work transitions and work disparities. And what was focused in on is that we know a lot about the barriers. We know the oppression. We know that people are not able to access the things that they want to do in work, and that the environment certainly has a critical shaping of what it is that people cannot do. What we discovered through the workshop was that we needed more information on what actually makes people successful. We know that they can't always break down the bottleneck of all the barriers, but what is it that people are doing that they could share with others? And so it sparked the column of the first sort of lived experience narratives of individuals sharing their stories. And again, what an innovative thing for a journal to do and to play a role. I played the role sort of as support person in the background. I called myself a ghost writer and mentor because I wanted those individuals to forefront their own stories and to be the people that actually were the authors of their own journeys. So I think that, I'll end with one more. Two more. One was the opportunity also to look back 20 years in the journal work, and we did an analysis of all of the papers, and we're able to document the first 20 years of the journal work in terms of themes. And I think it's critically important for our history to look at what shapes journals and what shapes us in moving forward. So I do feel that the opportunities for the journal work have really spearheaded a lot of social change and engaged a lot of people and mentored people throughout the years. And the last one is that we spent about 2008 or 9 to 2019. So a good 10 years. We had 14 lived experience narratives. And we realized that that was important to share collectively, and that article's now out in the journal work. It's a retrospective review looking at those narratives, what those individuals had to say to us collectively, and what were the things and the mechanisms that they drew upon when they couldn't break down those bottlenecks, but what did they do? And the learning of some of those I would say fundamental things that people were able to do and push forward to be able to return to work or to start a new career in a different area are really exceptional. And people should go to that journal and take a look at those articles. I believe that there's a good set of mechanisms that need further discussion in all return to work programs that need to be looked at to see how we support those individuals moving through that journey. And the last part of ending that column and moving to the new column is that we live in a world now where we understand more about inequities, disparities, and issues more on that look at global issues for groups of people. And if we look at the difficulties for refugees, people who come as newcomers to our different countries, need to resettle, need to find work, and those people who continuously be marginalized because of our systems and regulations about why they can't be a doctor in our countries when they were a doctor somewhere else, or they were a nurse somewhere else, or they were fundamentally contributing to some valued part of society in another country, and they come here and we have too many roadblocks for them. So the idea now is to move forward with a new column to really be able to understand how we can support dismantling some of those bottlenecks through what the systems have created, but also to look at what are the specific issues and nuances of different groups of workers, and how can we move people into work in and through some of these worldwide issues that people are experiencing, but also the barriers that perhaps we've never really taken a close look at in each of our countries to be able to support people to be able to access decent work, even as they shift and move through global transitions. So that's what we're hoping in the new column, and we're certainly inviting papers. So I'm grateful to the journal work. And I'm continuously honored to be a part of this journal, and I'm thankful to you, Karen, for that.
Oh, Lynn, you took us through so many contributions that you have made, and I do want to say another variable in all of this is your exemplary mentorship of so many people, and you have really helped advance what we publish in work and to make it a meaningful journal for authors. It has always been our goal when the journal was started that we would work with new authors, people who perhaps had never published before, like you were describing with your students, and give them that opportunity. And so one of the things that we do with the journal is encourage people to keep revising their papers. And I know some journals set a limit to that, and we typically will allow or encourage people to keep revising. Um,
Yes.
and that I think that's important. And you know, you do a lot of writing and so do I, and getting feedback, many
Hmm.
eyes looking at the same document is so helpful and enriching.
It absolutely is. And I would also add to that, Karen, in that we've also engaged new novice sort of researchers at, master's and PhD level on some of the review teams to learn how to review papers. So what we're trying to do is leave a legacy of people that get a start and then have an opportunity to be reviewers because they learned so much through the review process about what they can do to improve their own writing, but also contribute to articles going forward. So I think that it's sort of it really cascades through the whole area of what you would call mentorship and learning, but also support people, get them launched, because we want them to be the researchers and the contributors of the future. Without them, we can't push out the knowledge that needs to be in the hands of the people to make change in our society.
Absolutely. And you know, it's helping to groom these individuals who may be interested in going into academia or wanting to be scholar practitioners. You know, the
Yes.
clinicians are so important in the growth of knowledge, and
Mhm.
having that kind of collaboration is critical, very, absolutely critical. Um, Lynn, it really has been a joy to have you on this podcast. And as we begin to conclude the podcast, um, what's your why? What gets you up in the morning?
I can tell you that the why for me is centered on some values. And the values for me is that I feel that I am a servant. I am a privileged person. I have a lot that I feel that I need to give back. So in every aspect of what I do, including contributions to the journal, is I'm here to serve. And whatever gifts I have should be used in that align. The other thing that gets me up in the morning is that I'm a really energetic individual. I really have high demands on myself to move forward and to move things forward. And so I try to sort of live that every day when I get out of bed. And the last thing is to value the contributions of every human being and that everybody has a part to play. And so I really strongly believe in the collaborative, working with people to help them flourish and succeed. So those are the things that get me out of bed and energize me every day, is that there's always more to contribute. And I'm here to do that.
I love it, Lynn, and you live by your words because we've known each other a very, very long time, and I've seen you in action, and I continue to admire everything that you do and the way that you approach life in general. So thank you so much.
And thank you very much for this opportunity to share with others. And I'm open to any of the listeners who want to follow up with me. They can reach me by email. I'm sure that you could share that. Do you want me to share it here? Do you want to?
Yeah, why don't you share
Okay.
your email? That would be great, and we'll also post it on the podcast.
Okay. So if you're interested in reaching out to me, it's LESHAW at uwo.ca.
Great. And Lynn, thank you so much again. And everyone, all of our listeners, thank you for listening to Learn at Work. If you'd like to learn more about the journal Work, please go to our website. It's workjournal.org. Thank you again.